and good morning all, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about every Warhammer faction's New Year's resolution. What does that really mean? Well, a prime example of a New Year's resolution is finally getting through your pile of shame, or potential, if you want to be a little less melodramatic. The kind of vague, well-intentioned goal you're going to break by next week, but just for a moment feels amazing to promise yourself. To lay down some ground rules, we're going to be focusing on factions as they exist right now, mixing their stereotypes with how they actually perform. So we're going to try and keep it above the belt, not just saying, oh yeah, Tau, the communist fish people. They're going to stop being communist fish people. We're aiming for slightly higher brow humor than that. Sticking to my own commitment, the B-roll in the background should be me painting Angron, so please forgive the gorilla hands you're seeing. And without dilly-dallying too much longer, let's move on into Space Marines. The poster boys of Warhammer. You know them, you love them. The blue, yellow, green boys who just have a Codex Astartes for any situation. And their resolution is quite simple. To go a whole 5 minutes without releasing another Space Marine lieutenant. There have to be more Space Marine lieutenants than some factions have entire units. Especially if we're counting the Emperor's children. Now, I understand asking them to not do this is like asking GW to turn off the money printer for a moment. But if they do make it 5 minutes, let's be honest, they'll just release a Primaris Captain instead. All the other Space Marines. That's right, I'm too lazy to give you each your own section. You're all too similar, and I am not going to make the effort to go through each of the special chapters. So we're just going to do a quick speed run so that I don't lose my mind, and you all get heard. Black Templars. Your resolution? Read the Codex Astartes. Yeah, that's not happening. Blood Angels. Anger management classes. Because the last time you ended up killing the therapist, painting the walls with his blood, and calling everybody whores. Dark Angels. We're going to be more honest with our allies. Yeah, sure, sneaking a nuke onto Gilliman's planet was fun the first time, but after the 10th it's kind of getting tiring. Death Watch. Just hurry up and die already. You won't exist in 6 months. Everybody can move on. Space Wolves. To really figure out what being wolf-themed means. Does Viking stuff count too? It's this whole vague gray area. Just hammer out what the hell's happening. And if I missed your very specific beloved chapter, tell me about it in the comments. It's all engagement friendly anyway. Okay, and back to our regularly scheduled programming. Grey Knights. I won't lie, 10th edition hasn't been lovely to you. Between the lack of a psychic phase and the seemingly resounding shrug of a codex, there's not really too much in this edition left for you to hope on. As such, all we can really resolve for is to have some form of psychic or the AOS magic system, or just hammers, come 11th. In all honesty, however, probably not going to happen. But let's be real for a second and take off those nice rose-tinted glasses of the bygone years. Old edition psychic was better than having no psychic at all. It was probably rougher than we give it credit for. Instead of just rolling back to having old psychic, maybe, just maybe, we could try for some innovation and to breathe new life into the aging out Grey Knights. Adeptus Custodes. Moving away from the grey tin cans and into the golden statues. On paper, you're the best of the best. So your New Year's resolution should be pretty simple. To not be the noob filter of future editions. Because when you're coming in to fight against a Custodes army, you have a simple question to ask yourself. Do you have enough to get through the 4+ invuln saves? If yes, they crumple. If not, they roll you. And I get that's how 10th edition is showing eliteness, but it reduces what should be this really cool faction into just really swingy. And instead of an elite, powerful force, you're kind of going into a coin flip if you didn't lose in the list building phase. And Custodes should be so much more than that, with it being one of the more affordable armies of 40k. It's a shame to see it be reduced. And also your tanks no karate. Adeptus Sororitas. Power armor, bolt guns, and most of all, unending faith that devoutness will solve any problem given to you. The only fitting resolution would be to prove once and all that faith is a viable substitute for actual armor. Because when these gals go in and parry a demon's sword, it isn't luck, it's devotion. And until 11th rolls around, and hopefully lends you AOS's prayers, you'll just have to keep on making miracle dice occasionally rig the game in your favor. Because it's not cheating, it's faith. Admech, where the flesh is weak and the models are very expensive. For the 5th year running, your New Year's resolution is to not have your models be sub 2 points per dollar. It's ambitious, but the faction's had some real pains through 10th. Anytime a balance change is made, instead of rewriting the rules, the solution has been to lower the cost of your models. And while it has improved slightly, Admech is not exactly where it should be. It kind of feels more like Red Guard than it does this technologically advanced, hyper-complex faction. And bringing it to the table, like actually putting together an Admech force, gets ridiculously expensive, even for Warhammer. I'm not saying there should be as elite as Space Marines, but I want to have more with my Admech force than just crippling debt. They deserve to be more than Red-Colored Guard. They should have their needlessly complex rules just for the fun of it. And they should have more power than just throwing bodies at the problem. And probably more actual robot units. But that's all too wishful thinking. So let's just let's just all resolve to have your models give you just a little bit more bang for your buck. Astra Militarum. My favorite faction. And one that I will not be biased towards at all. We've had a great year, with the Deathcore Creed coming out at the start, followed by our acceptable codex. It's, in the scheme of 10th edition, better than most. As such, it leaves us with a very cut and dry resolution to accept that the Lehman Russ tank has to be brought into this century. I know I'm missing the low-hanging fruit of the Catachan, but the Russ has been sold in some form for about 30 years. It's iconic, but maybe, just maybe, we can let it go to rest. This is coming from somebody who has 4 of them sitting on a shelf over there. And seeing what GW did with the Rogel Dorn, I know it would be painful, but just think what it could look like. I mean, even the Chimera chassis is getting pretty old. Imperial Knights, noble houses, towering god machines, and the proud tradition of every opponent immediately forgetting the mission objective. Your New Year's resolution? To stop every game from becoming kill the big one. Because the moment your models hit the table, the game plan becomes simple. Not necessarily good, not necessarily clever, just simple. Either your opponent brought enough anti-tank and list building and can pick apart 1 to 2 knights every turn, or they didn't, and you spend the rest of the game punting them down the board. There's no middle ground, there's not a lot of subtlety, not that you would expect in a knight force, but the kind of nuances that you can sometimes get from Warhammer. There's simply only the question, can you kill it? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, congratulations, you went on Bring It Down. And if the answer is no, congratulations, you lost on list building. There was never really the discussion between you and your opponent on who was better. Imperial Agents, the faction that technically exists. You know, the shadow operatives, inquisitors, assassins, elite specialists operating outside the normal command structure. At least that's the fantasy of the faction. And your resolution is to find a consistent identity that isn't just borrowing all of the other units. Because right now, Imperial Agents isn't really an army or a cohesive force. It's a list of a bit of sisters, a dash of Death Watch, maybe a rogue trader or two if you're feeling spicy, and of course an Inquisitor taped on top with a label saying, yeah, this is totally a faction. They don't play like a cohesive force. They play like a paintingless cosplaying as an army. And as a whole, the idea is cool. It's an elite army that lets some of the weirder models get used on tabletop and ally in the gaps that they're missing. But it's a shame that they haven't had something to actually pull them together. And there's no promise that they're going to continue existing forward. They might just phase out when 11th edition comes. It makes building it or being committed to any force like that really hard when there's no promise that your effort and your time dedicated to it won't just be snapped out of existence. Now, as we dive into the chaos, if you could also look on down there, like, comment, subscribe, all the other YouTube pleasantries, I'd really appreciate it. We're at 19 subs at the moment of recording, and I would be genuinely amazed if we could push that number up to the big 40. Oh, Chaos Space Marines. The wayward sons fighting for an Imperium free of the Emperor. But you only ever show off the Black Legion side. Chaos Undivided is important, but you're missing some of the really neat parts of it, which is why your resolution is to show off some of the other CSM groups, besides just the Black Legion. We love the Black Legion. Horus, Abaddon, you do some really impactful things and are often shadowcast as the forever big bad, and you will forever live in the shadow of the good Space Marines. Good is in air quotes there. But it hides some of the more interesting and niche stuff. Maybe I want to see people getting flayed by the Night Lords. Maybe I want to see the grinding efficiency of the Iron Warriors. Maybe I want to see some demon summoning from the Word Bearers. They ooze personality, and they get shuffled and stuck behind the same dull black armor that we've seen 13 Crusades in a row. It feels like a missed opportunity. Death Guard. You're pretty well rounded, but there's one clear divide in your faction. You have to figure out if your identity is going to be the tough, strong Marines or the debuff stacking negative Marines. Both fannies fit Nurgle. The corrosive pestilence wearing down the enemy forces in an unending tide of attrition, or the god of death and undeath being disgustingly resilient as you shrug off bolt round after bolt round into your rotted abdomen. It's shifted back and forth between the last couple editions and not been totally clear. That's a major missed opportunity for a faction like you, where it muddies the waters. Or they could just double down and give you both and let you be the coolest of all Chaos Marines. Thousand Sons, T-Sons, prospering while the Grey Knights suffer. Even though you get your special own psychic phase, doesn't mean it comes without issues. Which lines up your resolution pretty easily. The Cabal point system is good, but it still makes your list building very rigid. There are certain units that you have to take, because if you don't, you are leaving Cabal points on the table. From what I can tell, mind you, I'm an outsider looking in, and after a solid 10-minute read through on Wikipedia, it means that you have to understand in list building how many spells you want to be pumping out and what kind of overhead you want to give yourself in case some of your Cabal point generating units get taken away. It can be constrictive on your list building. Don't take that as me complaining about it. Please don't take it away, Games Workshop. But it does limit how creative you can get in the list building section. And T-Sun should be one of the most complicated armies in the game. Should be up there with Admech and just doing random fucking bullshit. And is being robbed of these choices in simplifying list building, which is probably one of the coolest parts of the game. World Eaters. You've been unit starved since released. You have your regular legionary unit, you have the 8-bound, you have the Jackals, and you have Angron. And then you have Khorne Demons you can sub in. Oh, and you have the guy on the Rhino. Not the Rhino transport, the like armored up Rhino vehicle. But your resolution, quite simple. Really like to see the other half of your range. You know, get the Leagues of Votann treatment. It's not really okay. You've been unit starved since the end of 9th edition, and we're staring at the end of 10th edition now. That's been a solid 3 years with foot heroes. That's it. And it's robbing you of your identity, of what you could be. You should be this cool tech army, and instead you are pigeonholed into just being, fuck it, we ball. And there's almost certainly bias, because as you can see, I'm painting Angron right now. But damn it, I'm allowed to be biased. Emperor's Children. Brand new Kids on the Block by Warhammer standards. And came out to quite good release. You have very similar complaints as World Eaters, except you now get to sit in the 3-year waiting queue. Right behind World Eaters, who they were sitting right behind the Leagues of Votann. Your resolution is purely to get the other half of your range before World Eaters gets theirs. Just out of spite, you know, some good brotherly love, little bit of competition, or cousinly love. No, we're not in Alabama. Chaos Demons. Almost forgot about you. Just like how GW forgot to give you a codex this year. Which leads us right into your resolution. You have to figure out if you're staying as one army, getting turned into 4 Chaos armies, or if you're all just getting slapped into the respective Chaos Marine faction. Whatever's happening, Demons have had a rough edition. But with just a smidgen of acknowledgement, it could be what you're meant to be. You should be the endgame horrifying big bad. And instead you're just left to rot and sit on the sidelines because you don't sell as well as the pretty Blue Marines. But don't worry about it, because 11th edition is certainly going to be the edition of Chaos. Yeah, totally. Just like how this was going to be the year of Chaos. Chaos Knights. You spend most of the edition drowning in War Dog spam, right? That's what the Chaos Knight identity and the Codex allowed you to be. Now that the Codex dropped and we've had half a year with it, it seems that you're doing much healthier. You know, you actually have to bring a big knight out to bear, and it changed how you play fundamentally, which is really good. So your resolution is more of a statement on the core of the game. And it would be really nice to have battle shock or morale breaks actually mean something. This clearly is an issue bigger than just Chaos Knights, but a lot of the tools in the army rely on those leadership tests to fail, or putting out those debuffs and making them more likely to fail. But if they're failing, and it doesn't have that much impact anyway, it has some, but it could always be more. It's just a shame to see that isn't pushed as much. I understand losing your models because you rolled the dice bad and you didn't actually get shot isn't a good feeling, like on the player end, maybe that's why. But when a faction relies on those tests failing and actually having an impact, it robs that faction of its agency. All the same, Chaos Knights are probably in the best place you have been in years. With less War Dog spam, that's always good. I'm glad the big knights have a place to come out and play. The issue seems to be more at the core of a gameplay, and that doesn't mean that we don't stop hoping for improvements. Aeldari. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a lot of love in my heart for elves. And somehow, every edition, they find a brand new way to prove me right. So your resolution is to figure out if you're a dying race or the most cracked tabletop army there is. Because the fantasy of the army is this desperate, once advanced civilization in its death throes, trying to find anything. You've had your apocalypse, mind you, everywhere in 40k has had its apocalypse, but you've had literally 99.9999% of your population either get consumed by an Eldritch God or fall to being Drukhari. But when you go against them on the tabletop, it's move, shoot, move. They set the pace of everything that happens, and you're often stuck playing to their fiddle. It breaks the fantasy of them being this desperate dying race and makes them feel almost too in control. Now, it's a rock and a hard place because of how much foresight and total understanding of the universe they're supposed to have, but If they're supposed to be that total understanding, how are they always portrayed so incompetent as just showing up at the last minute? But hey, maybe with all that foresight, they've already seen how they're going to break 11th edition for a month at launch, just like how they did 10th. Oh, and for those who want to hear about Harlequins, see the Death Watch section, except that I hope you live. Drukhari. This one should be short and sweet. Your resolution is to tone it down just a little. Oh, no, never mind. Okay. They just turned somebody into an armchair. So I'm going to leave before they get any other ideas. All right. Tyrannids. You are the most horrific Xenofaction. You don't hate anyone. You don't monologue. You don't notice anyone. You are just there to eat. And your resolution is to actually play into being that horror. 40k has no shortage of intergalactic horror. But you're literally a xenomorph from Alien. And there is so much cosmic dread with how the hive mind is. It's easy in 40k to be the bad guy of the week, but you have to dive in and take advantage of it. To take advantage of being that stalking, endless threat. Purely the hunter, just doing what it needs to do. It's no shock in 40k to be underutilized as a bad guy. In fact, there's no shortage of bad guys in 40k. But it's a shame to see the Tyrannids be underused in that way. Genestealer Cults. I know the scrappy rebels need a good leader, but you have gotten character model after character model after character model. I don't think you've actually had a new foot troop release since you came out in 8th edition. So your resolution is to get a new unit instead of another character. You have this cool identity of infinite mutations and the egalitarian uprising. You have so much that you can pull on, from the mining motif to the fun folklore stuff, the whole mutant aspect of 40k, and you're sitting there finding another guy to give speeches. You need more bodies to carry him to the palace. Leagues of Votann. Resolute, honorable, short, grumpy. And now that you have the other half of your range, it's time to show off some more niches. Your resolution? Really show us the Ironkin. It's a different take from what every other faction, besides the Tau, can do in 40k. Because nobody else is allowed to play around with advanced AI. I understand you've brought in the Steeljacks, but push it just a bit further. AI is supposed to be too taboo to touch for most other factions, but it's this nice little piece of tension you can pull on, and it can show this different style that isn't shown off by the rest of 40k at all. Necrons, the tired old robots who just haven't quite woken up on the right side of bed. Your resolution is to really remember the plan after waking up. Half of you woke up ready for intergalactic conquest, ready to really kick these kids off your lawn. And the other are struggling to buy enough RAM to remember why the hell they're here. Plus, with the flare virus and the destroyer cult having its way with large parts of your race, and with my wallet, have you seen the prices for what 5 flares cost? That is nuts. Maybe while some of you are still asleep, you can dream up better prices for the flares. Orks. Mean, green, and having the best time of anyone else. Your resolution is quite simple. Just keep on keeping on. You are the most complete Xenos faction. In fact, you're probably the most complete faction outside of the Imperium. Some of the Orks are showing their age, but it matches the vibe of the army so well, and you can kit bash an Ork army into oblivion so well, it matches the vibe of what you put out. And really, even the players, they're great people. Nothing is better than being in a conference hall with 100 other people and hearing one Ork player just go full wah, because the opponent wouldn't accept their wah otherwise. And they just bring so much love and fun to the game. Keep on being you, you lovable bastard. Last but not least, the Tau, running on actual science and not just hope and prayers, and you are the most likely faction to actually finish their resolution, which is to stop being communist. Nope, that's exactly what I said I wouldn't do. Your actual resolution is to put out some new actual general war suits. More crew came out, your range is starting to feel more fleshed out, but some of the suits haven't felt love since the late 2000s. For Xenos, you're doing pretty okay, but could we imagine what some new stealth suits could look like? Or some of your suits could really use some love. As always, we can hope to go from being okay to great. And that's every faction's resolution. Will any of them actually make it through a year? Absolutely not. But I know I will be back next year with more content. And until then, you can argue in the comments how wrong I was or how I forgot about your favorite faction. I'll see you all next year when the meta's worse and the models cost more money.